Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Our third guest breakfast is on the way, but So again, I want to thank everyone for coming, being a part of the High School Journalism Network, and of course supporting journalism. Before I bring up two of our students here from Cypress Ridge, I just wanted to have them sort of get everything rolling. Just a couple of thank yous, of course, all the students who are here. Our guests, our security panel, members of the guidance and counseling team who are also here to help support what we're doing. Also members of my team, Joel Weckerly, our Director of Communications is here, and our assistant. Our Assistant Superintendent for Communications and Community Relations, Leslie Francis, is also in the back. Thank you for coming. All of our advisors, and again, thank you guys for being a part of the Journalism Network. Again, like we said, this first press conference, the first of four we're going to have this school year, our safety and security panel. And I'd like to bring up right now two of our students here from Cypress Ridge, Gabby Rodriguez and Victor Vasquez, to welcome you guys and to welcome our guests.
Hey, have a round of applause.
Well, I really very interested. So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Victor. My partner is Gabby. I'm the copy editor. I don't know my job, the copy editor. The yearbook right now is well, as you know, it's part of the journalism department, and we're not really that big in size right now. We're, like my teacher said, tiny but mighty. I want to appreciate Ms. Meshell, Mr. and Chief and he's on his way right now, but Mr. Sampson for coming out and asking our questions. And
okay, so our first presenter is Mr. Eric Mendez. He became the Chief of Police for the Cypress Ridge Police Department on July 1st, 2017. He began his law enforcement career 8 years in Chief Mendez holds a Master Police Officer's certification from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement and has more than 3,700 hours of training. He holds a Master of Science in Criminal Justice Leadership and Management from Sampson State University. And a Bachelor of Criminal Justice Administration from the University of So now, the best principal out there, Ms. Meshell.
I paid her a big time.
Was named a principal at Cypress Ridge High School on December 2020 from 2013. Prior, she served as a campus associate principal for 7+ years and assistant principal for 3 years. Ms. Meshell earned a Bachelor of Science in Education and also holds a master's degree in Education and Counseling from Stephanie Meshell, Austin State University.
We don't have a little.
You don't care.
Okay, and Mr. Franklin Sampson is here right now. On the way. Has served as Cypress Ridge Director of Guidance and Counseling for the past 2 years. Before serving in that role, he was the coordinating counselor of Indian Creek High School. His major events under Sampson's supervision includes college night, mental health training for district staff, and a mental health open house.
Do you have any logos in the house?
And before we open the floor for questions, of course, as everyone knows, we have our webcast for any students who may not be here, and also for later, in case you guys need to go back and watch some of the video. We have an empty chair in the front. I see someone sitting on the floor, so we can help you. But we'll find some more chairs if anyone needs it. And also, just thinking as far as the press conference, we'll try to point you guys out, give everyone a chance to ask a question. Just make sure you identify yourself and which school you're with, so we know who's all represented here and asking our questions. So with that, we will open the floor and start our press conference. So raise your hand. Who wants to be our first one?
All right, well, good stuff, y'all.
All right, I'm Lacey from Cypress Ridge High School, and I just wanted to know what kind of led y'all to the decision of staying away from career backpacks as far as elementary schools go, and only having them at secondary schools.
want me to get that?
Yeah, do you mind?
So the purpose of the clear backpacks, as we all know, is it's just one layer of our safety and security that we're doing at all our campuses. So with elementary kids, elementary students, for the most part, have a tendency to have their backpacks checked and packed each day by their parents. And so the likelihood of a student, not that it says that, not to say it can't be or should, couldn't be done, an elementary student more than likely has a backpack check daily. You guys go home, how many of y'all have your parents look in your backpack when y'all get home? But you get what I'm saying. And so the likelihood of a student that's in elementary school engaging in activity that may be possibly criminal or harmful is less likely at that age group than it is as you get older in life.
Mario Vargas, Jersey Village High School. My question is towards Principal Meshell. My question is, we live in a district where one half of the high schools have 50% of the students labeled as economically disadvantaged. We, the Jersey Village Press Program, conducted a survey with 440 students being surveyed, and 211, or 46.7% of those surveyed, had one or more plastic backpack free. How does this economic strain on those families to buy multiple backpacks concern or worry the district? How can the district assist in any way?
I would say that when we looked at the different layers of security to add on, and we looked at clear backpacks being one of those, we knew that it was going to be a cost to the families of our CFISD students. And so we as well at Cypress Ridge were about 70% low SES. Many schools are right behind us, but I'm going to say there's 4 kids in every school. And so we had to make sure as a district and certainly as a campus that we provided what they needed as in a clear backpack, but in with means to be able to afford that. So many schools, the district actually purchased so many backpacks that distributed to all schools, and they were given away free. And then for us, we had some other donations that were provided to Cypress Ridge High School. We purchased more, and we gave those away free as well. And so any kid that needed a backpack got a backpack, and still does get a backpack should theirs tear.
Ladies and gentlemen, Franklin and Sampson.
He didn't have lights to get here, so I didn't tell him no.
That's all right.
Yes, ma'am.
She's giving the LC. She's from your.
She's giving you some elbow rub.
Next. Yes.
My girlfriend and Miss Andrews High School. I have a question about why people go for plastic clear backpacks. What made materials like mesh backpacks not intended for I guess because it's more durable? What made plastic more of the optimal choice?
I don't know that it was necessarily plastic that we were looking at. It was the availability to look into a backpack and check a backpack as you walk. So everybody I've talked to that has asked me this question, I gave basically the same answer. It's more than just the ability for the students to know that we can see in your backpack, and I get it. Half of you are probably sitting there thinking, yeah, but if I stick a folder one way and stick another folder another way, you can't see in my backpack. But it takes more than just a clear backpack. It takes not just us or not just the administrators looking and having that ability, but you as students. Students are the community of the campus. You're just like neighbors in a neighborhood in the community. So when you go to bed at night, you just hope that no one breaks into your house, or do you lock your front door? And do you do more than just lock your front door? Do you turn on the porch light? Do you arm an alarm system? Do you have it? Do you use security cameras? And so all these layers come into play. And so when you look at the clear backpack, it was the ability to see in. Mesh backpacks, you can kind of see in, but you're not as able to see clearly into a backpack as you can a clear backpack. And so that was the reason for clear backpack versus mesh. And I get they're not as durable, but some of the plastic backpack makers are making theirs stronger seam, and they're finding ways to reinforce it. And so I think the backpacks that were ordered by the district were some that were very durable, and that's why we ordered thousands and thousands. I don't know, somewhere upwards, I think 30,000, 40,000 backpacks we ordered. And so we made those available to the students and especially to the students that had hardships and couldn't get those back.
Stephanie Meshell from Cypress High School. We all know there's people with mixed feelings about the fear backpack policy, right? Did you guys take into consideration all of the negative and or positive comments that would bring, or how people would feel with the fear backpack?
We did, whenever we looked at, and y'all can join in as well, because I think we're also part of this, is that, they came together as principals and we talked about what could work, what the many layers that we could add. I'm gonna say it, not one way of method of safety is going to be the end-all say-all. It has to be everything inclusive together. So whenever we looked at the opportunity to bring one more layer of security, of course, we're not gonna say no to that. We did know that there were gonna be pros and cons, so not only did the principals get together, then the whole administrative staff at Cypress ISD, as well as we had community meetings with parents and getting their input, and then making the final decision and moving forward. So we did get a lot of, or tried to get as much input as we could from the community as well as certainly the administration.
Was the outcome what you expected from the consideration of that?
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think the outcome was probably better received than I thought. I think that with any change, human nature, people don't like change in general. And so the outcome, I thought, was better well received than it was negatively received. We had a few individuals that spoke out against it and described their hardships in emails to me, and I know that Dr. Henry got emails as well. But the overwhelming response was everyone understood it's one step in a multi-layered approach to ensure that schools are safe every day. I just want to make sure we didn't miss somebody else between him back there and her right here.
Let me just add to that. Thanks, Edward, for having me. And that we took those things into consideration. And we also, a key point that we need to bring up is that now on the high school campuses, we have 3,000 other sets of eyes helping us, so that you guys can report it. It's a tip line if there's something in someone's backpack, so that we will be notified a lot sooner maybe than if it's in a mesh backpack or a backpack that was completely filled with cloth. So we think that it has been a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Hi, Grace Schaefer from Cypress Ridge High School. I was wondering, if an active shooter were to, occur, it is said that, students and faculty or individuals or victims involved have to run, hide, and then, or fight. But, schools only implemented, these drills for hiding. So if such, circumstances were to arise, how do you expect students to prepare if they don't practice the run or fighting, aspect?
You want it, you want me?
I can share with you that we did a drill here today, and we did we did assembly schedule where we actually, let me back up. For the last probably 3 to 4 years, we've been teaching our teachers to run, hide, fight. So that's not new. I will tell you personally, at Cypress Ridge High School, I failed my kids because I didn't actually teach our students, how to use the decision loop and orienting themselves and making a decision and enacting using those 3 things. So that's something that we're looking at, that we've started implementing this year. Trying to find ways of implementing it where, in actuality, whenever something happens, trying to help them with the decision-making process and knowing that it is a choice that they can have and they can take advantage of, I think is the important one. So really teaching the students. But I will say that I think this year we're trying to focus more on teaching the students. So in implementing and how that should look and how it should be implemented.
And Ms. Meshell's right. We have to do a better job of teaching you all. Part of the understanding of the run aspect is running when you know that you're in an area that you can get away. Obviously, if you're in, and I'm using an example, in the 300 wing, and the shooter's in the 300 wing, I don't want you to exit the classroom and try to run. It's not safe. At that point, you're going to lock down and you're going to prepare to fight, right? But if it's in the 300 wing and you're all the way across campus in the band hall, well, then I don't know that you need to lock down in the band hall. Your best alternative may to be away from the campus. And so it's just working through that. The other thing that we're trying to implement, and I know that the principals have been real receptive, is doing lockdown drills outside of normal class schedules. Have you practiced a lockdown drill during lunch?
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's something you have to consider. You have to look at what history teaches us. When school shootings have occurred, when have they occurred? Prior to school, after school, during lunch, a passing period. They do happen during class time, but not all the time. And so if we're going to be prepared in the event of a crisis, we have to make sure that we practice every different scenario that could possibly occur. And so this year is our year, right? We know that now with Santa Fe occurring in our backyard, it's so close to us, we really needed to do more of a concentrated effort to look at the possibility of a school shooting and then how we prepare you. We want you to be safe. We want you at the end of the day to go home and enjoy life. And so how do we make that happen for you?
And I say this, what we're teaching in the school to run high fight is applicable no matter where you are. So, and I hate to use a restaurant, but I'll say Chick-fil-A because you guys love that place. But if you're Chick-fil-A and if someone comes in with a gun, what do? Some of the same things we're teaching here can be implemented whether you're at a concert, whether you're at a movie theater, wherever that may be. So that's what we're trying. Sadly enough, it is what our world is right now. Our responsibility is to keep you safe and to arm you with as many tools so that you can keep yourself safe as well, no matter where you are.
So we're going to go seated there and then back there with the blue jean jacket and then
Maya Hamilton, Cypress High School. So going back to the clear backpacks, when you were discussing it, I know you said that you had community involvement. Did you actually ask any students how they felt about it?
I don't know. I don't know. There were many meetings and individuals involved, and I know that several different administrators in the district, and not just at campus level, but in the district, were tasked with getting that information. So I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. I know that I could probably answer a follow-up. Well, if we didn't ask students, how do we know what would have worked? And I get where you're coming from. But the other part of the clear backpack policy is if we were going to institute it, we had to institute it quickly because we had to give all of our local businesses and retailers an opportunity to order clear backpacks. Because if you pay attention, right, Target, Walmart, all these stores, they order school supplies, and you start seeing school supplies hit the shelves in July. And if we hadn't given them enough notice, they would order something that you couldn't use, and then they're stuck as a retailer with this overstock of backpacks they can't use. And so the primary focus was, if we're going to do it, we need to do it quickly because we had to give parents and the businesses an opportunity to get the backpacks and get them on the shelves so that they're there for you for the first day of school. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that lockdown and intruder drills are kind of potential to be carried out during, lockdown and intruder drills are normally carried out during class time, but an active shooting might take place during a passing period during lunch. Is there any form of plan when that takes place?
When the drills take place?
No, when the actual event happens during if it were to happen during a passing period or lunch, is there any sort of plan that we would have for that instance?
Well,
Since
that,
we only practice the drills during class time.
from my perspective, from law enforcement, I would anticipate and expect that our campus administration practice the drills with the various scenarios. And so, call a lockdown when lunch is almost over and there's thousands of students across the campus. Call a lunch down right before the start of school, earlier than normal, getting students to move quickly to where they need to go to secure the building. Or thinking about, okay, I'm in the cafeteria, where am I going to go as a student to ensure my safety? And so, from my perspective, that's part of practicing what we're talking about and the preaching of what we're doing. You know, my old football coach said we're only going to play the game as good as we practice, right? And so if we don't practice drills during a passing period or during lunches, then students may not necessarily know what to do during that time frame.
Is there any plan for the future to have drills during those times?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to turn to a principal.
I think it is. I think a big part of it is us teaching the part first. And whenever you have 1,000 kids in the commons and you're going through a drill as to where they could go and how do you manage that, that's what we've got to figure out. But we have to do the teaching part first. I'll tell you that we did a simulation today, and the biggest part is whenever we had students in the hallway and they spent time trying to get into a classroom. And we've instructed our teachers not to open the door for anyone because you don't know who is, even though you know the student and that familiarity, you may want to just grab that student and pull them in, but you're endangering the lives of the 28 or 30 other students that you have in the classroom. So we're doing it step by step of trying to process. This is a big mind shift because I will tell you, our teachers and our staff, we want to do everything to keep everybody safe. And what we have to do is kind of really shift our mindset of how can we do that? How can we truly do that? So there's a lot of teaching that goes along with this. I think that we can do teaching. Sometimes it may not necessarily be a drill before school starts, but it may be us talking about what does this look like should something happen before school starts. And it really goes back to that decision making, orienting yourself, acting, and then deciding and then acting on what you've decided to do. Because I'm going to tell you this, you can be in one classroom and one situation happens and you choose to hide. You're in another classroom and that's not an option because your door doesn't lock. What do? So there's no, the person could come in at the same time, but where they come in, where you're located, if you're in the gymnasium, and you guys know this, if you have 3 classes in the gymnasium, and a shooter comes in one side and you only have double doors going out, not everybody's going to get through those doors. So that's our processing that we're trying, the teaching model we're trying to help our students as well as staff with what do you do? And truly it's where you are in that gymnasium and what you feel like you're capable of doing is going to determine which of the 3 you choose to do. And hiding may not be the option. So it may just be the other 2. So I would say this, there's a lot of teaching that we're going to be doing with our students to help prepare them for it.
And then also, just as a student yourself, you have to be thinking always, what is my escape plan? If you're a student caught in the hallway and you know the doors are locked during an active shooter situation, well, the thing that you should do is move away from the gunfire, move away from gunfire sound. So if you hear it over here, you're moving away and you're looking for an exit from the building to move away from the building. Don't look to necessarily go into a classroom. If you're already caught in the hallway and you know all the classrooms are going to be locked, then look for your exit away from the building and away from gunfire. Move away. And then go somewhere that you know is safe. A convenience store close by, a residence that you may know of, and then let us know where you go. Because we have to account for you at the end of the event. We have to know where you're at.
Dusty and I have a concern with high school. This is a question for Mr. Sampson. How are you ensuring that students who need that mental health assistance, that they're getting help? Is there like a screening process that you kind of overgo? Because some students may not come forward if they have issues or if they're having these stuff.
We trained during the beginning portion of this year over 9,000 staff members on mental health awareness. And that's our teachers, our administrators. We were able to do that to bring awareness to the importance of taking a look at mental health issues, get students who suffer with mental health illnesses. Let me say this, that there are some students who don't have mental illness, have a mental illness, but they're not mentally healthy. So with that being said, what we attempted to do was to identify some of the characteristics of those students who may suffer from mental illness, one, and then those students who may not be mentally healthy. From there, we have a host of counselors on our campuses, as you very well know. We have roughly 8 to 9 counselors on every high school campus 3 counselors on every middle school campus and 1 to 2 counselors on the elementary campuses. From there, we've also created what's called the mental health intervention team. Okay, and 4 of those ladies are here today. They're licensed professional counselors. Shelly Ann's here, Miss James Keller's here, Miss McCarty's here, Miss Wallace is there, and then Miss Cortez is located right in the rear. Those licensed professional counselors, along with 2 school psychologists and 2 mental health officers from our police department, will help to continue to train and also continue to provide education to our community, to our schools, in regards to addressing those students who may suffer from mental illness. I share this with you. We're still in the preliminary stages of training our staff members on this mental health intervention team, but know that our counselors have different questionnaires and assessments as they interview the students in their offices. Then we're able to know where that student is, and we're able to share with parents the support that those students may need.
And with this process, would you go through this process with every student, or just students who would happen to walk into your office?
It really varies. We receive referrals from teachers, sometimes from coaches. We receive referrals from other administrators, sometimes from parents or other parents. And so it comes from a host of different areas. When we start talking about our counselors, they really, their charge is to make sure that we address the needs of every single student. So please know that.
And sometimes it's students letting us know that there's another student that's in need, and they provide that information to adults. So our students are some of our greatest advocates for each other.
Yes, sir, and then we'll go to the back. So 1, 2.
Mr. Vasquez, Cypress Ridge. Many students suggested other safety regulations like metal detectors and putting more police officers in campuses. Would you guys be open to these suggestions?
So first off, with metal detectors, that's something that's not out of the question yet. The district has formulated, and they're getting an outside organization to conduct a study to determine the feasibility and the cost for putting in metal detectors. Just because you have a metal detector at the door doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe, and we have to look at staffing. How do you staff it? Excuse me, and then when do you continue to search individuals that come and go? So students, and I'm guessing everyone from every different high school, you may have a class outside, you may have a class in athletics, you may have, and so when you exit the building for those classes, are you going to get rescreened to come back in? Because how do we know that you're not going to hide something outside and then pick it back up as you come back into a class? And so we have to continue to look at the feasibility of doing metal detectors full time. And then if you do them full time, then now we have to consider how long does it take to take a campus? How many students do you have? You have 3,100 students here, and so what does that process look like to bring all the students in every day for the start of the day to get 3,100 kids screened through the front doors? Because if we do it, you're going to have limited access points. You're going to have 1 or 2 places to enter the campus at. And so if we do that, now we're increasing your educational day, and if you ride the bus, your bus time changes because you need to get picked up earlier so we can get you here earlier to get through the screening process. And so we're looking at the feasibility. We want to make sure that we spend wisely to ensure your safety. Now, an additional officers, I've added some more additional officers for daytime patrol. We currently staff every high school with 2 officers, as you know. And then we've increased the number of daytime patrol officers that we have. So the school district is cut up into 6 sectors, and every sector has 2 patrol officers. And the reason we do that is so that we decrease the amount of time that it takes to get to any one campus in the district quickly. We want to make sure that we can arrive at a campus in 3 minutes or less, right? Or 4 minutes and less, because we need to minimize the amount of time that someone has the ability to enter a campus and cause harm or danger. The district went in and put the bullet resistant film on the doors, on the glass doors, That's to prevent someone from trying to shoot their way in. If you go and you look at Sandy Hook Elementary when that incident occurred, they did everything right. They had locked front doors, they had a buzz-in system, but the individual was able to shoot through the glass doors and just walk in. Well, in order to prevent that here, we put in the bullet-resistant film. So again, we take all these multiple layers to minimize the amount of time that someone has to be able to enter the building. We've increased the number of patrol officers to quickly respond to any campus in a very short period of time. And then again, you already have 2 officers at every secondary school that are ready and available at the minute a crisis occurs to start reacting and going straight to that crisis. We're in the back.
Connor Dusky, Langham Creek High School. Do you feel that there have been enough safety measures in schools already? Or do you feel that we need to add more? Or is it sort of like if more tragedies happen, we need to accommodate due to that situation, like we're saying with the board as well?
I personally think that we can never consider ourselves fully prepared. I don't ever want my police department to become complacent, thinking that we're well prepared for the event of an emergency. We always want to look at every crisis, every incident that happens across the country to determine what we can learn from them. And if we find something that happened differently than, say, another school shooting, and there's a benefit to adding a different layer of security, then we want to add that layer. So we always look at every instance, every incident, and see what can we learn from it to make us better prepared in the event of an active shooter or in the event of any crisis, right? If we had a tornado roll through here, are we prepared for a tornado? And after the tornado, or there's something we need to do differently to ensure the student's safety? And so it's just looking at every crisis and always looking for how can we enhance our safety and security so that you guys are safe every day. So my answer is no, we're not ever fully prepared because there's always something to learn every day and there's always something different that we can do every day. And then adding new measures, it's all based on what we learned from other incidences and what they did well, but they could have done better, and then it translates into how we do it and how we can do it better for y'all.
Let me add, part of police's staff, along with a couple of counselors and school administrators, actually attended a special training from the U.S. Secret Service, and they studied multiple acts of school violence that took place. And from there, they were able to provide us with a host of different tools to assist us with the planning for this year. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that too.
All in the back.
Do you believe there's any weak points in the security systems today that all of them have been implemented? And so, how can we further develop on that to make it strong?
That's a good question. I don't want to say that no, there's no weak points, and then tomorrow something happened, and then I'm quoted as saying, but there was no weak points. Again, it's every day we have to assess our campuses every day and determine. We see something and say, you know what, we need to take a different approach of what we see, because that obviously shows us that there may be a weakness in the way a passing period occurs, the way certain doors are monitored, the way a check-in system occurs at the front, the way a parking lot is monitored. Any of those could be a weak point, but how are we addressing them every single day? And so to say, I don't know if we have weak points today. I'm sure we might, but our due diligence as a police department, as administrators, and as a district as a whole is we do our due diligence by looking every single day at what we can do better to ensure the safety of the campus.
Since Cypress High School, I have a question for Principal Meshell. Has there been a noticeable increase in crackdowns on drugs and illicit items, or rather an overall decrease in the amount of incidents involving those items here at the site?
I don't know if we've seen we usually do data by the report card time, so I haven't seen the data as of this year. So I really can't speak to that.
We're going to go right up here and then back over here.
Eric Mendez, Cypress Ridge High School. I have a question about the protocols. How have they evolved and adapted to the current situation? For example, at Cypress Ridge a few days ago, they were new news to the students, are there any more rules like that that we should expect? If so, could you give me examples?
I think it's with anything, I think all of us has looked at the dress code and how can we make sure that we're enforcing it to the extent that we can keep kids safe. And so while it has always been in there that trench coats should not be worn, it's in the student code of conduct, I think we're probably looking at that a little closer. Whenever you see items that may be able to conceal things that they should not have, I think just tightening up things to make sure that we keep people safe.
There was a question somewhere, oh, right there. As of now, have you guys thought of any regulations that you guys might put into next year?
We're constantly looking every day at what we do, how we do it, what are the protocols, what are the safety measures. I can tell you that I know from hearing Dr. Henry, our superintendent, speak, and that he has lost sleep over worrying about, are we doing enough, can we do more, what can we do differently. I can tell you that every administrator and staff member in Cypress Ridge has felt the same way. Our kids and our staff safety is priority number one. I can tell you, whenever I first entered this profession, it was the first thing that was expressed to me is that as a classroom teacher, your first priority is your kids' safety. And I can tell you that's still my number one priority as a principal. And I can tell you it's certainly our priority of Dr. Henry's. So we will always look for ways to do things better and to be more effective. And but I will tell you this, one of the best things in my opinion that we have in Cypress Ridge is a family. And that we look out for one another, we try to get to know our students, they're not just members in our school. Your teachers and the staff really care, and they're asking questions, and then kids care about each other. So you all reporting and saying, if you see something, you say something. I can tell you this year alone, while I can't speak to the drug statistics, I can speak to different situations that have happened across our campus and how many of them have been prevented because students saw something or staff members saw something, and because they saw something, they said something. And we try to take quick measures, and it saves lives. And you all make a difference in what you do each and every day in speaking up and even telling us what you see wrong with some of our safety measures and how we can tighten them up. So I think in Cypher ISD, the relationships that we build, the family that we have, I think makes a tremendous difference.
Have you guys planned for the case of 2 active shooters, possibly?
From our training standpoint, we train for all different scenarios.
So what would be the reactions to that happening?
We would respond. So you're asking a very in-depth question that law enforcement doesn't share. So in my law enforcement career, I'm in my 29th year, right? I've finished 28 years, I'm in my 29th year, and one of the things that I've done over my time is when I've done hundreds of media interviews, one of the things that we don't share with media is our process or protocol, because the media reports that to the general public. Well, why would I tell the media to tell the bad guys how we respond to an emergency so they know how to defeat it? So your question, have we practiced for it? We train for all scenarios, and we consider all scenarios and how we would engage those scenarios to stop the threat from harming you. But I wouldn't tell you our process because that's not something we would share externally so that someone who's considering doing an active shooter response knows what our response would be and know how to defeat it. Make sense? Cool. Yes.
Hello, Fernandez. This question's for Mr. Sampson. Last year I did an article for my school about mental health research and about how we didn't have enough mental health professionals. And the reason that was given to me was because we had a lack of funding. Now this year we have more mental health professionals, and I wanted to know how has funding fluctuated between schools? Did every school get a certain amount of funding for mental health professionals? And the training itself, how did it vary, and did it deal with the counselors that we had previous to that?
First off, let me say I'd love to read your article. If you provide that for me and email it to me. Secondly, to answer your question, there was money that was set aside from the governor that we were allowed to tap into. And that's how we were able to address the issue of the things to mental health. We'll continue to do that because we're looking for grants to help us fund salaries for additional mental health professionals. So whereas we're starting with the mental health intervention team, we're still looking at other opportunities, and we'll still look at other opportunities to expand that team and offer additional support to address mental health.
Oh, it can't be it. We're gonna go to the back and then to the front, so there, and then up there.
Yvonne Beaver Lane Creek. In some districts across the nation, there's been talk about the possibility of arming teachers as a measure of defense. Is this ever a thing you would consider, or are there too many potential risks to arise to this?
I think teachers have enough to do trying to educate every day, and I don't think they need to worry about engaging an armed subject. I think that our district, as large as it is, and as many officers as we have in our district, that we're better suited not to arm teachers. I think that when school marshals first came about, it was for those rural counties where you had schools that the closest law enforcement response was 30 minutes or more away, and so it had to give the schools the ability to protect themselves. And so the district, Cypher, we decided as part of the meetings that we had that it wasn't in the best interest of the district to arm teachers. And so that's why we didn't do it. And I strongly believe that teachers have enough to worry about. They don't need to worry about also having to engage an armed subject, having to keep track of a gun every day at campus, plus keep track of the students, plus keep track of students' work, and everything else that they have to do. For the purposes of Cypher, it was more beneficial to let the officers deal with the training and response for an armed shooter, and let the teacher worry about their students. Yes?
What has been the process for trying to get all of the schools on the same page about safety? Since there's so much differences between the schools and running day to day, has it been difficult to try and get the same safety protocols in each individual school?
I don't think it's been difficult. As a district, when we came up with the protocols of and the layers that we were putting in place, everything was sent out to the principals. The principals all went through training. All the administrative team went through training and the staff. And then each campus was given leeway on adding more stringent policies as they saw fit, but there was a baseline of what they had to do, and all the principals have been very receptive in the administrative team.
Do you feel the clear backpacks expose the privacy of students?
No. I don't. Huh? I'm sorry?
Could you go more into depth?
Well, I personally don't think that it exposes it. I mean, the purpose of the backpacks is for your schoolwork and your school books and the things that you need for school. So if you have something that's personal that shouldn't be exposed to the student body, then maybe you shouldn't bring it to school. The district made arrangements for things that needed to occur at school, such as personal hygiene items for females, and they allotted a bag that they could bring included with their backpack for that purpose. But the purpose of the backpack itself is for schoolwork and for school books, and so it doesn't violate, I don't believe, any privacy issue, because there's only one purpose for that school backpack at school, and that's for school-related items. Next. All right, good talk. I'll add one layer since nobody asked. We do have canines now in district. We have 2 with the 3rd one coming in about 2 weeks. Those dogs are specifically trained for narcotics and nitrates. Nitrates are black powder, things that, for bullets, for guns, stuff like that, and that's what they find. Our goal as a police department in the school district is that we find nothing at school. That's our goal, because if we find nothing, that means the student body is complying with the code of conduct and not bringing things they shouldn't bring to school. I will tell you that in the first 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of doing searches in our district, we didn't do searches the first 2 weeks of school. That was intentional. I wanted the dogs to go out be seen at the school but not do searches so the students were aware, because we promoted it all summer long that we were getting canines. So, minus the first 2 weeks of school, starting in week 3, for the first 3 weeks or so, we did 56 searches and we only had 7 fines. That's low. That's where we want the numbers to be. Do as many searches as we can and find absolutely nothing as our goal. As a number, I don't know, because we've never had canines before. So I don't know what the numbers of fines have been in the past from, say, Interquest, who the district contracted with before. And so, to have 56 searches and only have 7 fines is pretty significant. That's very, that's a good number. And that's 7 fines across all secondary campuses, not just high school. That's middle school and high school. So 7 fines around, well, we have 12 high schools and 19 middle schools, so that's pretty good. Yes.
What are the future for canines in the Cypress Ridge program?
What do you mean?
Seeking to expand the system, or like just keep it to 3 years?
Well, the balance has to be there for the number of searches and the activity that we have. So we have roughly 92 schools in the district, and then you only have, again, 19 middle schools. We'll have, middle school 20 coming within a year or so, and then high school 13's coming in about 2 years or 2.5 years. So I don't see us changing from the 3 canines that we have. I think 3 is the right number that we need to be able to conduct the number of searches that we conduct. If I add to the canine program, it's going to be the dogs that you guys never see. It's going to be patrol dogs that work overnight. And those dogs will be used for clearing buildings if we think we have a burglar in a building. And they'll also be cross-trained as bomb dogs, so that if we ever have bomb threats, they can do a bomb search for a bomb. Yes.
How has the district handled parental awareness? Because there's been a big emphasis on the teachers being more aware of a student's mental health and other students recognizing when other students are in distress. How have you contacted parents? How have parents been involved in the process and been more informed?
Sure. Well, the superintendent sent out newsletters in regards to the current status of the district, and of course that's also handled with the communications department. And I think they've done a pretty good job at making sure that there was parental communication during the summer. That's why you guys were able to find out about clear backpacks and some of the other initiatives that we were putting in place at the beginning of this year. It was not a surprise when you guys stepped foot on campuses across the district. So I think that the communication is key, but I think that we've done a pretty stellar job in making sure that parents were aware, and we'll continue to do that. That's huge. And each campus does that. Building principals across the district have done a great job at making sure that information is dispersed to parents, and we have taken advantage of our messenger, and we've kind of pulled back a little bit on call outs, but we've made sure that text messages or email communication that we communicate what's going on in regards to changes or new initiatives for the district.
We got time for a couple more.
This is for Mr. Sampson. How does the mental health department at Cypress deal with striking a balance with potential risk students between keeping everyone in the school, including the students, safe, while also not isolating the student and making the problem potentially worse?
I love the question, and it goes back to one of the fundamental words in the counseling field, and that is confidentiality. And we do our best to make sure that we assist the students, but not, of course, we try to make sure that student is not ridiculed, or if we're dealing with the student, we try to keep that information as confidential as possible. Now, if a student discloses that they plan on harming themselves or harming someone else, you guys have been trained by now in regards to suicide, we have to notify someone at that point. But though we notify others, we still are not in a position, or we choose not to publicize it. So we only notify the individuals that need to know. Okay? So just want you guys to know that. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Thanks. Lobo too, right?
Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Oh. Almost sold. You had to be.
A few weeks ago at Cypress Ridge, the shooter alarm went off, and we were told that that was a malfunction. I don't know if it happened in any other schools. We were told that it did, but I'm unsure which schools that were. If anyone wants to weigh in, they can. I interviewed the student body for that, and most of the student body said that they were well prepared. However, in the event of another malfunction like that, how in the event of another malfunction, how exactly would students know that, okay, everything's fine? Or if it were an actual shooter situation, do you think there's a way students can be better prepared? Students in the portables, for an example, were unsure if, because some saw the police checking the perimeter like they're supposed to. However, many students were freaking out, panicking. How would we, as fellow students or as teachers or anyone else in the room, combat that panic? I hope that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and in response, on the heels of a crisis, people have a tendency to be more overly concerned about alarm. So it may not necessarily have been a malfunction. It may have been someone accidentally hitting the panic button. I'm not sure about the alarm, but I know that in my history of dealing with these things, sometimes people aren't aware and they may hit a panic button, not realizing they've touched it, and so it sets off an alarm. My response to the students is anytime you hear the alarm, you take it as it is, and you do what you're supposed to do. That's why we do drills. But it's imperative on the administration to get the information out if it's a false alarm or that it's clear. That's something that we can't do from the police department. We have to rely on our partnerships with the campus administration to now spread the word. It's a false alarm or it's just a drill. Thank you for conducting the drill, whatever, and then reassure the student body and the staff that everything is safe. You also have to consider, too, in the event of an active shooter, we're going to want our administration from the office making announcements, telling you what's happening and where things are happening at, so that if you're not in that area, you have an opportunity to run, right? And so it's just working on the communication and getting that out. Yeah, anything you want to add? So, but that's where we're at with that.
Some, like with that you were talking about earlier, Ms. Meshell, some students who are kept out of classrooms, they were unable to get to a safer area. So how would they just run and keep running in that instance, or would they try to hide in like a bathroom?
And what you're processing right now is what we want all students to process. If I'm not in the classroom whenever a lockdown happens, the answer is don't waste time trying to get into the classroom because the teachers have been instructed not to open the door. So what are your other two options? Well, I actually have three. You can still hide, find a place to hide. You can certainly run, but you need to make sure where you're running to. Coming around the corner, you don't know what's around the corner. And then certainly you may have to fight. If you're in a restroom and you're taking cover and you're hiding, but yet the shooter comes in there, you've got to already have in your mind, this is what I'm going to do if someone comes in here. This is how I'm going to try to handle it. Because you're just trying to, even if you just knock the shooter off balance so that you can run past and get safe, you have to make that decision. So those are the things that, sadly enough, I wish that we could just focus on academics and not worry about this, but it is reality of what we have in our world today. And so preparing you, again, whenever I see you talk about school, you may be at a movie theater, you may be at the park, you may be at a restaurant.
I'd be at church.
You may be at church, and these things happen. You may actually be able to save the life of your family as well by already orienting yourself, being able to make a decision and helping them. It's a big difference from what we used to teach whenever I grew up. It was always hide and take cover, period, and it wasn't these other two options. And I think that from Virginia Tech shootings and other shootings, we realize that is not the best way of handling it. But you do have to decide based off of your surroundings, what is your best interest and what are you capable say that everyone's able to fight, because we know that sometimes people, as they get up in age and or disability, they're not able to do that. So they're gonna have to look to the other two options. You may be in a room that you have other students there that they're not able to run. So how do you as a class decide what your next step is? You have to be aware of not only yourself, but also the other people in your surrounding. You would hate to open the door to leave, but yet you just open the door and the shooter's able to come in and do harm to others. So I say this. Thinking about your surroundings and knowing them and knowing your options are our best way to keep ourselves safe. If a shooter knows that they're actually going to have someone possibly try to attack them whenever they go in, they may actually think twice. I think our high schools have 2 officers there. They're trained to shoot. They don't ask questions. They don't negotiate. I can tell you as a teacher and as a principal, what are we taught? Whenever a kid is upset, angry, we're trying to disengage them and talk them down. But that's not what we should be doing whenever it's an active shooting. So these are things I will tell you again, that from the administrative side, from the teacher side, it has been a true mind shift for us, and trying to see things from another perspective than maybe we were taught, as well as trying to find ways to teach our students without alarming them, because we need you to be able to think through these processes now so that if it should happen, that you're able to make those decisions on your dress.
I'd like to add to what she said, what Ms. Meshell said. This is also the time that you as students have conversations with your friends. Have conversations and say, what if? What would you do? So that you learn from each other also. Because for us to share our knowledge and our training and our experiences with you, if you don't go share what you've learned today with someone else, then it's not as effective from you just knowing, but we want everyone to know. And so, when you're sitting around with your friends at lunch and you're having conversations about whatever's on social media that day or whatever the life events that are happening, sometimes take a minute and say, hey, if something happened today, what would you do? Where would you go? How would we do this? And that's how you kind of learn and train, is by having those role play, the scenario in your head and with friends, and say, what would we do? What would we do to keep each other safe as friends? And then how would we keep those that we don't even know that we know attend school here safe?
So one of these safety tools is, like, most of you guys have a cell phone with dual cameras. So if most of your cameras are located at the top portion of your phone, so if you're inquisitive in regards to who's around the corner, versus sticking your neck out to see if there's someone around there, you guys can just simply have your cell phone on. You use the back camera, and only this portion of your phone is going to be sticking out. You'll be able to see on the screen who is in that hallway. That's just another tool that you guys can share with your friends as we talk about ways to be proactive. All right, so just want to share that comes from our active shooter training.
See, it's used for other things than Snapchat, Twitter.
That's right.
The same. And don't forget the tip line, guys. The tip line is very important to the district. Making those anonymous tips, I bet you didn't know we had well over 1,000 tips last year. It's important that we get that information, because we went out, our officers go out, overnight hours, the evening hours, they knock on doors, they make contact with parents, especially for kids in crisis. It's not uncommon for someone to send a tip and say, hey, I'm worried about little Susie because she was talking kind of strange today, and she was mentioning the other day, talking about suicide and stuff, and I'm just not sure if it's appropriate. We go out, we knock on doors, we find out, we talk to parents, we make sure the kids aren't in crisis, and we make sure they get the proper help. So remember, the district has a tip line. You can access it, from your phones and from computers. Utilize it. Send us those tips. Let us follow up on it. It just doesn't come to us, it comes to campus administration as well. So we can make sure that you guys are safe every day.
One more, I had a hand in the back.
Chairman Mendez, high school, last question. What do you consider to be a turning point when considering, like, series of events that happened, for example, with the school shooting? What had to happen in order for you to consider, like, the clear backpack policy, or like,
For me, personally, Columbine is what happened for me to consider school shooting. And then, strangely and oddly as this sounds, me having conversations with some of my colleagues in law enforcement that I worked with for years and years and years, I distinctly remember having a lunch with the chief of Fort Bend. He's the chief of Fort Bend ISD now, but we both came from Austin ISD. And we were sitting at lunch many years ago, and he said, if someone ever does a school shooting at an elementary, we're going to have huge concerns because families aren't going to think their kids are safe anymore. And then fast forward 4, 5, 6 years later, and Sandy Hook happened, right? And so we had the forethought to consider an elementary and how to keep it, or knowing we had to keep it safe, but we're only one component of a school district. It takes everyone, it takes a community to make sure that our schools are safe. And so the turning point for me was Columbine. How do we do things differently for our students? We're not in a society anymore where you have open campuses. I mean, I'm kind of old compared to y'all, and my high school that I went to in Corpus Christi had open wings. We didn't have a front door and side doors. You could access any wing because they were all open, straight off the parking lot into each wing. And so we didn't worry about school shooters back then. We didn't even have police in schools back then. But now, fast forward through all the school shootings that have happened, that have made that have taken all kinds of media attention. The true turning point came with Columbine, because that was the loss of life. The numbers were so great that everybody started to consider we have to do more. That's when President Clinton said we're going to give all these presidential grants so that you can start police departments, and they went to a zero tolerance policy, and it was just, there was a big emphasis on school safety. And then every school shooting that happens after that changes how we look at, and our perspective of how we look and how we respond.
And this is the one tweak to the normal press conference. I'm going to ask everyone to please give a hand for our guest panelists. Thank you guys again for coming. Thank you again for all the students. Just a couple quick bullet points again. If you guys need to go back and watch the video, we'll email the link to you guys and your advisors. If you need to go back and do any of the research points or stories you guys might be working on. Don't forget to use our hashtags, HSK Impressor and CFISD HSKN as part of promoting the network and letting your fellow reporters who may have not been here know what they missed and all that good stuff. Great questions, by the way, from everybody who participated. Thank you guys.
Good job, guys.
I will say I expected a great crowd, but I'm overwhelmed by it.
I am.
We're standing room only here. So thank you guys for coming. Again, our next press conference will be December the 5th. I'm locking down details as to when, where, and who, but all your friends can keep this sort of attendance going all year. And then the last thing, even though it's a big crowd, we're going to ask for a group picture. So I'll grab the gifts for our guests. If you guys can all move to the front and get around our guests, we can get a group picture.
Oh, I got to get a